Right now, as you watch this video, military commanders across 3 continents are monitoring screens that could trigger the next global war. In the Pentagon, analysts track Chinese naval movements near Taiwan. In Moscow, strategists calculate NATO response times along the Baltic frontier. In Beijing, planners assess missile flight paths to Guam and Okinawa. Each side believes they're defending themselves. Each side is preparing for the others to strike first. What if I told you that World War III wouldn't begin with a formal declaration or surprise attack, but with a single miscalculation that spirals beyond anyone's control? What if the next global conflict started not in months or years, but in the next hour? Every civilization believes it will last forever. We've built our world on the assumption that nuclear deterrence, economic interdependence, and diplomatic institutions have made great power war obsolete. But history teaches a brutal lesson. Peace is always temporary. For 80 years, we've avoided direct confrontation between nuclear-armed superpowers. That streak could end today. The current global order resembles 1914 more than most realize. Great powers locked in competing alliance systems, military buildups disguised as defensive measures, and economic tensions that make compromise increasingly difficult. The Western coalition, United States, NATO allies, Japan, South Korea, Australia, and key Southeast Asian partners, maintains collective defense commitments spanning the globe. The U.S. operates over 750 military bases in 80 countries with 375,000 personnel stationed overseas. NATO's Article 5 binds 31 nations to mutual defense. Opposing them, a revisionist alliance has emerged. China and Russia conduct joint military exercises from the Arctic to the South China Sea. Iran provides drones to Russia while receiving advanced missile technology. North Korea tests intercontinental ballistic missiles capable of reaching American cities. 3 flashpoints could ignite global conflict today. In the Taiwan Strait, Chinese Type 055 destroyers conduct routine patrols within 12 nautical miles of Taiwanese waters, while the USS Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group operates nearby. In Eastern Europe, Russian Iskander-M missile systems in Kaliningrad can strike targets across Poland and the Baltic states within minutes. NATO's enhanced forward presence positions M1A2 Abrams tanks and Patriot missile batteries less than 100 kilometers from Russian borders. In the Persian Gulf, Iranian Revolutionary Guard fastboats harass tankers while U.S. Fifth Fleet maintains constant patrols through the Strait of Hormuz, which carries 21% of global petroleum exports. Unlike previous world wars, the next conflict would begin simultaneously across multiple domains: land, sea, air, space, and cyberspace, with consequences reshaping civilization within hours. At 14:23 Greenwich Mean Time, a Chinese Type 052D destroyer conducting exercises near Scarborough Shoal collides with a Philippine Coast Guard vessel. The collision appears accidental, but debris damages the Chinese ship's radar array. A Philippine CN-235 maritime patrol aircraft approaches to offer assistance. The Chinese destroyer, operating with degraded sensors, identifies the aircraft as a threat and fires an HQ-9 surface-to-air missile. The patrol plane is destroyed instantly. 12 crew members die. Within 30 minutes, Manila invokes its mutual defense treaty with the United States. The USS Ronald Reagan Carrier Strike Group receives orders to proceed to Philippine waters. Chinese submarines shadowing the carrier group interpret this movement as hostile and move to intercept positions. As diplomats scramble to contain the crisis, the real war begins invisibly. Chinese PLA Unit 61398 launches coordinated cyber attacks against U.S. Pacific Command networks. American Cyber Command responds within minutes, deploying offensive cyber weapons against Chinese military systems. GPS signals across the Western Pacific experience Technical difficulties. Commercial aircraft report navigation errors. Shipping lanes handling 60% of global maritime trade suffer mysterious system failures. Russian GRU hackers coordinate with Chinese cyber units, targeting European power grids and financial networks. Stock markets in London, Frankfurt, and New York experience glitches that wipe out $2 trillion in market value. Russia launches a peacekeeping operation into eastern Estonia, claiming to protect ethnic Russians from NATO aggression. The operation involves 40,000 troops supported by S-400 air defense systems and Iskander-M tactical ballistic missiles. NATO's Article 5 is triggered. British Typhoon fighters scramble from RAF bases. German Leopard 2A7 tanks begin rolling eastward. The 82nd Airborne Division receives deployment orders to Poland. In the Persian Gulf, Iranian Revolutionary Guard speedboats swarm through Hormuz, laying mines and harassing tankers. When a U.S. destroyer escorts a Kuwaiti oil tanker through the strait, Iranian fast attack craft surround the convoy. Believing he's under attack, an Iranian commander launches a C-802 anti-ship missile at the USS Arleigh Burke. The missile is intercepted, but the precedent is set. Chinese DF-21D carrier-killer ballistic missiles target the USS Ronald Reagan. The carrier's escort vessels launch SM-3 interceptors, successfully destroying most incoming missiles, but 2 penetrate the defenses. The Reagan suffers significant damage and begins listing. Emergency repairs prevent sinking, but the carrier is effectively neutralized. US B-21 Raider stealth bombers launch AGM-158 SEAL-RASM cruise missiles against Chinese naval facilities in the South China Sea. The Yulin Naval Base suffers extensive damage, with 3 Type 055 destroyers destroyed at dock. European NATO forces engage Russian units in Estonia. German Panzerhaubitze 2000 artillery exchanges fire with Russian 2S-19 MSTA systems. The battle for Narva becomes the largest tank engagement since World War II, involving over 400 armored vehicles. As conventional forces suffer heavy casualties, military commanders face a terrible choice: accept defeat or escalate to tactical nuclear weapons. The threshold that has held for 79 years begins to crack under the pressure of modern warfare's speed and intensity. By the end of the first week, the war's true scope becomes clear. This isn't just military conflict. It's the collapse of interconnected systems sustaining modern civilization. Global supply chains shatter completely. Container ships carrying 90% of global trade remain in port as insurance companies refuse coverage. The 400 largest container vessels, carrying $14 billion in goods, sit idle from Singapore to Rotterdam. Manufacturing grinds to a halt. Automobile production stops as semiconductor supplies from Taiwan are cut off. Pharmaceutical companies struggle to produce essential medications as Chinese chemical precursors become unavailable. Basic items like clothing and electronics become scarce as production networks fragment. The Internet reveals its fragility. Undersea cables carrying 99% of international data traffic become military targets. Severing 5 critical cable systems isolates entire continents from global communications. Social media platforms struggle to maintain service as data centers lose power. Financial markets experience their worst crisis since 1929. High-frequency trading algorithms, confused by unprecedented volatility, amplify market crashes. The New York Stock Exchange loses 47% of its value in 3 days. Food security collapses in import-dependent regions. Japan, importing 60% of its food, faces shortages within weeks as shipping routes close. Urban populations encounter empty supermarket shelves for the first time in generations. Energy systems reveal their vulnerability. Cyber attacks create rolling blackouts across Europe and North America. Natural gas supplies, weaponized by Russia, leave European industries without fuel. Renewable energy systems dependent on Chinese rare earth minerals cannot be maintained. Most critically, the war accelerates beyond human decision-making timelines. Autonomous weapons systems begin making life-and-death decisions independently. AI-powered cyber weapons adapt and spread through networks faster than defenders can respond. The war develops its own momentum, driven by algorithmic logic rather than human strategy. Manufacturing grinds to a halt. Automobile production stops as semiconductor supplies from Taiwan are cut off. Pharmaceutical companies struggle to produce essential medications as Chinese chemical precursors become unavailable. Basic items like clothing and electronics become scarce as production networks fragment. The Internet reveals its fragility. Undersea cables carrying 99% of international data traffic become military targets. Severing 5 critical cable systems isolates entire continents from global communications. Social media platforms struggle to maintain service as data centers lose power. Financial markets experience their worst crisis since 1929. High-frequency trading algorithms, confused by unprecedented volatility, amplify market crashes. The New York Stock Exchange loses 47% of its value in 3 days. Food security collapses in import-dependent regions. Japan, importing 60% of its food, faces shortages within weeks as shipping routes close. Urban populations encounter empty supermarket shelves for the first time in generations. Energy systems reveal their vulnerability. Cyber attacks create rolling blackouts across Europe and North America. Natural gas supplies, weaponized by Russia, leave European industries without fuel. Renewable energy systems dependent on Chinese rare earth minerals cannot be maintained. Most critically, the war accelerates beyond human decision-making timelines. Autonomous weapons systems begin making life-and-death decisions independently. AI-powered cyber weapons adapt and spread through networks faster than defenders can respond. The war develops its own momentum, driven by algorithmic logic rather than human strategy. Negotiated ceasefire, 65% probability. Economic devastation and the threat of nuclear escalation force a fragile ceasefire. Back-channel communications produce humanitarian corridors and deconfliction arrangements. Russia withdraws from most Baltic territories in exchange for security guarantees. China reduces military presence around Taiwan while accepting limited international monitoring. Iran agrees to monitored corridors through Hormuz. No one wins, but nuclear war is avoided. This outcome establishes a dangerous new equilibrium. Military spending increases globally. Cyberspace becomes permanently militarized. Global trade reorganizes into competing blocs, ending economic interdependence. Authoritarian collapse, 25% probability. Economic devastation triggers internal crises in Russia and China. Military failures and international isolation orchestrate palace coups or popular uprisings. New leadership seeks rapid peace to restart economies and access frozen assets. This offers the West strategic victory but creates new dangers. Nuclear weapons in unstable states pose existential risks. Refugee flows strain international capacity. Economic reconstruction requires massive investment when Western economies are weakened. Nuclear threshold crossed, 10% probability. Conventional stalemate forces desperate leaders toward tactical nuclear weapons. A single detonation, intentional or accidental, shatters the 79-year nuclear taboo and triggers escalatory dynamics impossible to control. Even limited nuclear exchange produces global consequences. Climate effects reduce agricultural productivity worldwide. Electromagnetic pulse destroys electronic infrastructure across continents. The psychological impact ends assumptions about technological progress ensuring human survival. The most frightening aspect of World War III isn't that it would destroy civilization. It's that it could begin before anyone realizes what's happening. Modern warfare moves at digital speed, where human decision-making becomes a bottleneck in systems designed for instantaneous response. We live in a world where artificial intelligence controls financial markets, autonomous weapons patrol borders, and cyber attacks can cripple nations in minutes. The next global war won't wait for diplomatic ultimatums. It will emerge from the intersection of human miscalculation and technological acceleration. The question isn't whether World War III is possible. It's whether the systems we've built to prevent it can operate faster than the systems we've built to fight it. What do you think would happen in the first hour? Could anything stop the escalation once it begins? If you want to understand what happens when the nuclear threshold finally breaks, check out our analysis of the first hour of nuclear war. The link is on your screen now. Thanks for watching.